Main event of the evening.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Garry Marshall's second romantic comedy with a massive cast themed around a holiday, New Year's Eve.
Okay, Peter, tell us about all the things that happened on New Year's Eve.
It's December 31st in New York City. Claire Morgan, vice president of the Times Square Alliance, is preparing for the ball drop.
Over 1 billion people from all over the world will have their eyes on us tonight as the ball drops.
Ingrid, a repressed secretary, is almost run over on her way to work. Two couples of the hospital's maternity ward, Griffin and Tess, and James and Grace, discuss the hospital giving prize money to the family of the first baby delivered in the new year.
Did I forget to mention the news cameras in your face right after giving birth? That's horrible. It's not worth it at all.
It's 25 grand. They could put the camera in my hoo-ha and it'd be worth it.
Paul, a delivery man, calls his artist friend Randy, who hates New Year's Eve and plans to stay inside the whole time.
I'm gonna find something so epic that you will not be able to say no.
At a church upstate, Sam is best man at his friend's wedding, then prepares to go back to the city. They bring up a girl he met last New Year's Eve, and he dodges the subject.
What about the girl?
What girl?
Laura, a chef, is catering an A-list party thrown by Ahern Records, where the headliner is none other than her rock star ex Jensen, who she slaps when he visits her in the kitchen. At her job at Ahern Records, Ingrid takes a package from Paul for her boss, which turn out to be tickets for a big New Year's Eve masked ball. At a mall, teenagers Haley and Seth make a date for Times Square, and Haley discusses whether or not she and Seth will kiss tonight.
You are so gonna kiss Seth tonight.
Claire is stressed from planning the ball drop, but is helped with a visit from her friend, NYPD officer Brendan. Jensen tries to reconcile with Laura, but she's still mad about him walking out on her a year ago. Ingrid receives her end-of-year bonus from her crappy boss, which isn't enough for her to finance the trip she wanted to take. When her boss also won't let her take 2 weeks off, she quits.
I quit.
You can't quit. It's Grammy season!
At the hospital, Stan is dying of cancer, refuses all forms of treatment, and has nobody he wants notified.
There really isn't anyone we can notify. No one at all.
The only people who ever cared about me, I pissed off long ago. There's no one.
The only thing he wants is to go up on the roof and see the New Year's ball drop one last time. But the doctor is, of course, against this. Randy, throwing out party decorations, is trapped in the elevator with his new neighbor Elise. He's not particularly bothered, but she's horrified that she might be late for work.
This is 5B! I'm stuck in this elevator! I'm gonna be late for work!
Back at the maternity ward, Tess and Griffin try to get a doctor to agree to do a C-section tonight, but she refuses, even after they try to bribe her with part of the prize money.
Frankly, I'm surprised that you would even suggest this, Tess.
What if we went 60-40?
Haley and her mother Kim, a seamstress for the Rockettes, argue over Haley wanting to spend the night in Times Square alone. Ingrid visits Paul before he leaves the premises. She just completed the first of her old New Year's resolutions by quitting her job, and she hires him to help her finish the rest by midnight. If he does, he gets the masked ball tickets.
All right, I don't understand what you want me to do here.
Use your imagination.
First, they have breakfast at Tiffany's. Then they take a taxi ride without any traffic by taking a water taxi. Jensen enlists Laura's sous chef Ava to help him win her back. He admits what happened. He proposed to Laura, but then he got cold feet because he wasn't ready for it. Laura enters, not happy that Jensen is telling Ava this, but she calls a truce. They have an amicable conversation.
Did you hear the new record?
No. Yeah.
But it ends when he asks her to go on tour with him again and give up her job. In the elevator, Randy and Elise argue over the validity of New Year's Eve and fail to get through the ceiling hatch. Randy spots Elise's Jensen pass and calls her a groupie. On the way home, Haley and Kim run into Seth, who tries and fails to convince Kim to let Haley go to Times Square. At their apartment, Haley compares Kim to Piper's mom, who hides in the bushes to make sure Piper actually goes to school, and says her mom needs a man in her life.
Look, Mom, you're a hot woman. If you just lose the clogs, maybe?
Paul helps Ingrid check Go to Bali off her list by taking her to a Balinese spa in Brooklyn. Tess and Griffin try to induce labor by eating anchovies. They run into James and Grace again, and tensions quickly escalate.
You probably don't even know that yams can kickstart labor.
Yeah, actually we do.
Yeah.
And in fact, at this moment, my wife is full of yams, but thank you.
Sam has trouble with his GPS and ends up crashing his car. It gets towed, and it's too late to visit a rental car place. The mechanic drives Sam to his cousin, a pastor who is driving into the city to see the Rockettes with his wife and kids. Sam is so happy he even agrees to pay for all of the gas.
How much gas are we talking about?
What's your credit card limit?
Back at the hospital, Nurse Amy asks Stan why he refuses treatment and promises to make him as comfortable as she can. Kim checks in on Haley, only to find that her daughter has snuck out through the window. Ingrid adopts a puppy, checking off Save a Life from her list, and goes around the world by driving around the Unisphere on Paul's motorcycle. At 6 o'clock, the festivities begin in Times Square. The ball begins going up the pole, only for the lights on it to start going out and for it to stop before it reaches the top. There's only one person who can fix the ball, Lester Kaminsky.
We need Kaminsky.
The Kaminsky?
Ingrid walks all 5 boroughs in one day by walking through the Queen's Museum of Art's miniature map of the city. While she does so, Paul calls Randy to tell him about the tickets and his deal with Ingrid, describing her as a few sandwiches short of a picnic and pathetic. Ingrid overhears him, gives him the tickets, and ends the night prematurely.
Where are you going?
Staten Island.
Back in the elevator, Randy apologizes for calling Elise a groupie, and she guesses that he grew up in the suburbs, moved to the city, thinks he's more interesting than he actually is, and hates New Year's Eve because a girl broke his heart on the holiday. She is correct. She explains that she's a backup singer for Jensen, and she's supposed to perform with him tonight at the Ahern Records party, and then at the New Year's ball drop. Randy asks her to sing something for him, but she refuses.
The only time that I do performances for audiences of one is when I'm in the shower.
On the bus with the pastor's family, Sam is mocked by his sons and discusses last New Year's Eve with the pastor's wife. He met a woman and started talking about business, and she put a hand over his mouth and asked about his heart. They kissed, but when he left to go to the bathroom, she was gone and left a note, telling him to meet her back at the same restaurant if he's still thinking about her next year.
You're gonna meet her, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Lester Kaminsky arrives to fix the bulb. He's a legendary electrician who was fired last year by Claire's predecessor. There's a short in one of the bulbs, which isn't as straightforward as it sounds, since the bulb has over 3,000 lights.
Have we not progressed past the string of Christmas lights that all go out if there's one bad one?
My question also, and then I get fired.
While he starts to repair it, Claire stalls by giving a speech about the importance of New Year's Eve on TV. At a bar in Times Square, Kim is looking for Haley and calls Paul, still at the Queen's Museum of Art, who turns out to be her brother. Being Haley's cool uncle, she did tell him her plans.
She may, in fact, have said the 54th Street Pen.
And Paul helps Kim find her in exchange for help getting into the Radio City Music Hall so he can make it up to Ingrid and help her check off the next resolution. Be amazed. Tess and Griffin arrive at the maternity ward at the same time as Grace and James. Tess and Grace make peace before being taken to their rooms, but Griffin watches jealously from across the hall, believing Grace and James are trying to steal their money. Back in the elevator, Randy is drawing Elise while Jensen performs at the party. Elise finally sings for Randy, singing her part of the song that Jensen is currently performing.
I'll sing.
You don't like my voice?
Draw.
Despite Laura saying she won't watch Jensen perform, she does. A delirious Stan apologizes to Amy, thinking she's his daughter, for not keeping his promises to her. At the Radio City Music Hall, Ingrid is flown across the stage in a harness, which does indeed amaze her.
Are you amazed?
I'm amazed you got me to do this!
Back in the elevator, Elise and Randy have an impromptu party using the old decorations and almost kiss before the elevator abruptly starts working again. The building superintendent asks them if they had sex and says he'll check the video. Midnight is getting ever closer.
And Leon's getting larger.
Haley is looking for Seth, while Paul drops Ingrid off to watch the ball drop, and they bid each other goodbye. Sam arrives in the city at the Ahern Records party, which is being thrown by his mother. Claire's boss shows up to chew her out for the ball malfunction, and to tell her not to screw up lest she lose her job.
Fix it. Otherwise, you're going to hear a speech from me about the new vice president of the Times Square Alliance.
Okay.
Elise shows up to perform backup for Jensen, who has not gotten on stage himself. Randy has followed Elise there to return a bracelet she dropped, but really, to kiss her. Claire approaches Jensen, who is in a funk about Laura. He screwed up and doesn't think he deserves a second chance, and Claire admits she's in the same situation. She suggests that maybe all Laura wants is to not have to share Jensen with the rest of the world. She asks him to sing before he goes to fix his problem, which he does. Sam gives a speech at the Ahern Records party in honor of his late father,
And we're thinking about you tonight, Pops.
and tells everyone to listen to their hearts. Kaminsky fixes the ball, much to everyone's joy. Mayor Bloomberg wants to congratulate Claire, but she has something else she needs to take care of. Claire leaves Kaminsky in charge, and Brendan to keep an eye on Kaminsky, with Brendan's family joining him. Back at the Ahern Records party, Rose Ahern praises Laura's food and promises to tell everyone she knows about her, and Laura learns that Jensen insisted Laura's company be hired for this. Sam leaves the party to go meet his mystery woman. Claire goes to the hospital to meet Stan, her estranged father.
Did we miss it?
Ball hasn't dropped yet.
She takes him up to the roof, while Amy leaves for her own New Year's celebration, a video call with her boyfriend deployed overseas.
What do you think?
Oh, I love it. I love it. You look so beautiful.
Laura and Jensen talk, and he tells her he's canceling the tour. He's never going to leave her again, and he'll make up for it for as long as it takes. She says it could be years of makeup sex before she chooses to forgive him, and they go to a party together. The ball drops, ringing in the new year. Elise performs Auld Lang Syne, while Jensen is making up with Laura, and Haley sees Seth kissing Lily Bowman before she reunites with her mother. Tess gives birth to a baby boy, and Amy bids farewell to her boyfriend. Sam arrives at the restaurant to find that it has closed down. Paul kisses Ingrid, crossing another resolution off her list. Kim lets Haley go to an after-party with her friends, since they're being followed by Piper's mom. Haley then confronts Seth, who claims that Lily grabbed him and kissed him. Then he and Haley kiss. Claire watches the babies in the nursery, while James congratulates Tess and Griffin on their baby, who Griffin claims was born after James and Grace's.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Sam, still waiting outside the former restaurant, is joined by his mystery woman, who is Kim. Then all the characters dance together at a party.
Thank you, Peter. That was New Year's Eve. It was released on Friday, December 9th, 2011. The other movies released that day were The Sitter, young adult, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. The biggest movies in theaters that month were
Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, which is very prominently advertised in this movie, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1, and Alvin and the Chipmunks Shipwrecked.
Alvin and the Chipmunks Shipwrecked, rated G.
So of all those movies, Peter, did any of those grab your attention?
I remember just staying home in December of 2011. I did recently watch Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, and I did really enjoy it. I should see Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
I probably should have seen that too. I actually saw two of those movies. I saw Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, which is an entertaining film, and The Sitter, which is also a film that exists. New Year's Eve brought in $142 million on a $56 million budget, which is still pretty good, but not as good as Valentine's Day. It must have been good enough to warrant a third film in this franchise. It was directed by Garry Marshall.
It's really going up. Holy shit. Hector's on a ball. He's going up in the air.
This was the second in Gary's hyperlinked cinema trilogy. It was written by Catherine Fugere, the author of Valentine's Day, this time working solo. And this time around, the individual stories have names.
Resolution Tour, Hospital Story, Maternity Ward, Jensen and Laura's Story, Elevator, Mother and Daughter, Ahern Party, and Times Square.
In case you're counting, that's 8 different stories. I might have cut it down to a lean 4 or 5. I found personally that one of those stories was slightly more palatable to me than the other 7.
I think that I am in the same boat as you, and for me, it was the Michelle Pfeiffer, Zac Efron age gap romance plot. I found myself surprisingly invested in that, and I kind of wish it had been its own movie that wasn't constantly being interrupted by Robert De Niro dying in a hospital.
That was the one that I liked best as well, and I also felt that it should have been the entire movie.
Just a nice movie about an older woman who's kind of mousy, who embarks on this relationship with this younger guy who's kind of a douchebag but has a good heart underneath it all, and they just go do fun things in New York City. And I love that she's basically just playing Selena Kyle again without the undercurrent of rage.
I even opened the protected files and...
How industrious.
She's even got a terrible boss, who I guess is slightly less terrible than Max Schreck.
Yes, it did remind me of that earlier performance by Michelle Pfeiffer, and I think the whole movie picks up when those two are on camera together. There's so many times in this movie where they have to cut to Robert De Niro in a hospital bed.
Why is his hospital room lit like that? He's dying. At the very least, you can turn on some lights.
As for the music in this movie, yet again, the score was by John Debney. To put this in perspective, John scored 4 other films and a video game that same year. Any thoughts on the score for New Year's Eve?
It's pretty good. Unfortunately, I was distracted every time they played a song from 2011, and I was like, I remember this song. Pitbull should make a comeback.
The one thing I noticed in John Debney's score was there's a moment when the direction to him was clearly, give us something that both is and is not. Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go.
See?
Over the opening credits, we hear This Is the New Year by Ian Axel. On his tour bus, John Bon Jovi sings 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad, a song that originally appeared on Meatloaf's Bad Out of Hell album. And is he covering that song, I guess, as part of his act?
I guess. Or maybe he's just singing it for himself. Who knows?
When Paul and Ingrid are zipping around on a moped, we hear Best Day of Your Life by Katie Herzig. I thought that song was pretty adorable.
Mm-hmm.
As the camera pans around Times Square, we hear New Year by Katie York. And what I wanted to ask you, Peter, is of all those shots of the ads in Times Square, were there any shows advertised that you wanted to see or wish you had seen?
They were advertising A Little Night Music with Bernadette Peters and Elaine Stritch. And I wanted to see it so bad.
That was the one I was hoping you were going to notice. I was like, oh, I wonder if Peter noticed that. And of course you did.
There was also an ad for Billy Elliot, which I actually did see when it was in Chicago. And I was like, I want to say 10, 11.
Most of the shows were pretty obvious. You could see Mamma Mia or Avenue Q. Was Phantom playing at that time? I think it might have been.
I think Phantom only closed very recently. It was a New York staple for very, very long. Andrew Lloyd Webber casts a very long shadow, and we might never be rid of it.
For more than 20 years, this has been the Broadway musical all others are measured against.
When people pull up to that Ahern party, we hear Give Me Everything by Pitbull, and that was very nostalgic to hear. Later during the party, John Bon Jovi sings Have a Little Faith in Me, and Lea Michele sings that same song while stuck in the elevator. This is a cover of a John Hyatt song. If you'll remember, Pastor Dan was a big John Hyatt fan in Raising Helen, so I don't think this is a coincidence. Maybe Garry Marshall was super into John Hyatt. Any thoughts on this John Bon Jovi, Lea Michele duet.
It's a good song, but as a song to bridge the divide between Jensen and Laura after he proposed and then left her, I don't know if it quite works. And I will also say that John Bon Jovi and Lea Michele singing a duet together, it's like, you know the movie Cats?
Yes.
Which is just like a grab bag of famous people who don't feel like they should be on the same planet, let alone the same movie. That's how it feels. John Bon Jovi and Lea Michele doing a duet is like Taylor Swift and Idris Elba doing a duet.
As Ingrid flies over the stage in the harness, we hear Sleigh Ride by the Late Greats. And I realize that Sleigh Ride is one of those quote-unquote Christmas songs that doesn't actually mention Christmas at all. And you could sing it at any time when there's cold weather.
Yeah, right now it is about 10 degrees outside, but it feels like -6, so I'm going to be singing Sleigh Ride on my commute to work.
After Sam's speech, John Bon Jovi sings I Can't Turn You Loose, originally written and recorded by Otis Redding in 1965.
I guess Jensen as a performer does a lot of covers, which is fine, I guess, but also like, if he's like the biggest rock star in the world, surely he can do some of his own material, you know?
Yes, I think he does all covers in this movie. Mayor Bloomberg's appearance is heralded by New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. Very obvious choice. When we actually reach midnight, we hear Better Days by the Goo Goo Dolls. Then Lea Michele sings Old Lang Syne.
I know a man, his name is Lang, and he has a neon sign. And Mr. Lang is very old, so they call it Old Lang Syne.
This is built up as a big dramatic moment in the movie. Did that scene work for you?
Not really, no. I think it's there just because the people who are watching this for Lea Michele are probably like Glee fans who are just there to hear her sing. So they wanted to give her a solo that isn't a duet with John Bon Jovi.
When Claire visits the newborn babies, we hear What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. And I felt that this song was used up well before New Year's Eve was ever made. And I was sort of dismayed to hear them use it again in this movie because that song has been claimed already, you know?
Yes.
When the hansom cab arrives at the closed down restaurant, we hear What Do You Say by Jacob Saylor.
Oh, hello, sailor.
And over the end credits, we hear Raise Your Glass by Pink, Bringing in a Brand New Year by Charles Brown, and The Fun Begins by Alison Sudol. And I really like the Raise Your Glass by Pink part of the movie because it shows all the characters dancing at a party, and that looked like fun.
Dance party endings get a lot of flack because they are generally seen as a lazy way to bring all the characters together and give it a happy-ish ending, but it kind of works for this movie because it's not like the stakes were ever all that high, you know? Raise Your Glass is a fun song because for whatever reason it includes a quote from Heath Ledger's Joker. Why so serious?
I guess what really sold this scene for me was Michelle Pfeiffer's dancing. She really seems to be getting into this song.
Yeah.
As for our main cast, our returnees include
Hector Elizondo, Jessica Biel, Michelle Pfeiffer, Carrie Elwes, Sarah Paulson, Peter Allen Vogt, Ashton Kutcher, Abigail Breslin, Larry Miller, Christine Lakin, Martin Braverman, once again playing a street vendor, Sean O'Brien, Beth Kennedy, and Patrick Collins from Young Doctors in Love.
We now move on to our newcomers, and to add a little bit of intrigue, Peter, I had a slightly contentious online run-in with one of these fabulous celebrities. Our newcomers include
Zac Efron, Robert De Niro, Halle Berry, Seth Meyers, Till Schweiger, Carla Gugino, John Bon Jovi, Katherine Heigl, Sofia Vergara, Russell Peters, Lea Michele, Sarah Jessica Parker, Cherry Jones, Josh Duhamel,
The thorough but gentle laxative.
Yardley Smith, Jack McGee, Hilary Swank, Ludacris.
That's Ludacris. That's not Tyrese.
And Ryan Seacrest.
And of those fabulous celebrities, which one do you think I had the slightly contentious online run-in?
My first instinct is to say Ryan Seacrest, but I don't know if Ryan Seacrest actually uses his own social media. I feel like he just has interns to do that for him. So I'm going to say Till Schweiger.
I wish it had been Till Schweiger, but it was actually Seth Meyers. And here's what happened. Seth Meyers hosts a podcast with The Lonely Island where they reminisce about their time on Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And in the comment section on one of their videos, I commented that when SNL does sketches about the Frankenstein monster, they make the Frankenstein monster too dark green. And Seth Meyers picked up on that comment and discussed it with the members of Lonely Island the next week, and he got a little testy about it, that I had said that the Frankenstein monster was too green on SNL. I specifically said, the Frankenstein monster isn't the Hulk. He's not that green, but Seth Meyers disagreed, and he talked about it on his show, and it was weird to hear Andy Samberg talking about what I said about the Frankenstein monster on SNL. That was my Seth Meyers story. We have cameos galore in this movie.
Common, Alyssa Milano, Jim Belushi, Joey McIntyre of New Kids on the Block, Penny Marshall, John Lithgow, The Rockettes, Matthew Broderick, and Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
Did any of those cameos do anything for you?
Jim Belushi has what is maybe the second grossest moment in the movie, where he asks Randy and Elise if they had sex on the elevator and then says he'll check the camera footage later, implying that he wants to watch them have sex.
When Jim Belushi showed up in the movie, what I desperately wanted him to say was,
"Excuse me, pardon me, beg your pardon. If you two kids would just stop singing for a moment, I've got something I want to discuss with you."
That would have been a great callback, but they didn't do it. I was also amused by the cameo by Common, mainly because of the way Common's video call with Halle Berry ends. He just says, "I think about you all the time."
I think about you all the time.
And he fades out into static. Halle Berry puts her hand on the static. And I'm like, what video conferencing software are they using that works that way? Common has his hands folded in front of him. How is he ending this call? With his mind? He disappears like a Star Wars hologram at the end of that call. I know it's supposed to be like a serious dramatic moment, but I was like, this is weird video conferencing software that they are using.
It's not as tonally jarring with the rest of the movie as the Robert De Niro plot, but it is way too heavy for this movie.
The Robert De Niro stuff is completely tonally at odds with the movie because they will have a really goofy scene and then they'll cut immediately with no transition right to Robert De Niro dying. So that was odd for me through the whole film.
Robert De Niro has had such a legendary career, and he's also made so much crap. I think he knows that his legacy is secured, so he can just take whatever paycheck job he wants, which, hey, good for him. I'm not judging him. He's Robert De Niro. Like, I'm specifically thinking of the Sebastian Maniscalco movie About My Father, where he plays Sebastian's traditional Italian father who kills and cooks a peacock belonging to the family of Sebastian's girlfriend.
I murdered Sergeant Feathers.
As for our cultural and historical references in this movie, among the many, many New York landmarks we see in this movie, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Statue of Liberty, Rockefeller Plaza, Times Square, Radio City Music Hall, Lincoln Center, the Brooklyn Museum, where the Ahern party happens, the Queens Museum of Art, where Paul takes Ingrid, Columbus Circle, and the UN building. Of those, were there any places that you wanted to visit after watching this movie?
The Queens Museum of Art looks really cool. Yeah, this was a very effective advertisement for the Queens Museum of Art. I'd love to go there.
That place looked awesome. I'm sure this movie generated some interest in that place. As for our other cultural and historical references, the beginning of each new year has been celebrated since ancient times, but January 1st was not established as the official first day of the year until the reign of Julius Caesar.
Pizza, pizza.
The modern American tradition of New Year's Eve started sometime in the 1890s, and Times Square became the hub of the holiday in the early 1900s, with 1907 being the year of the first ball drop.
Looks like his balls ain't dropped.
I believe Hilary Swank does give us a little history lesson about Times Square and the ball drop. Would you want to be in Times Square on New Year's Eve?
Theoretically, yes. However, January is cold, and I don't like being outside when it is cold. If I did go to New York for the ball drop, I think I would just spend the entire time being miserable because it would be cold, and I wouldn't be able to really appreciate anything else. So all things considered, I'm happy watching it at home in my nice warm apartment.
I would never want to do it. It does look very cold. It does look very crowded. It does seem very noisy and chaotic. No, I wouldn't want to do that.
No, I don't want to do that.
Claire is introduced as the vice president of the Times Square Alliance. This is a real nonprofit formed in 1992 to improve and promote Times Square. The organization started just a couple of years before Mayor Giuliani led an effort to make Times Square more family-friendly. According to some, the area was Disney-fied and lost a lot of its character. I would say that what we see in this movie is a very Disney-fied version of Times Square.
You're not going to see any porno theaters in this movie.
Much of this movie revolves around a contest in which the first baby born at a New York hospital wins a $25,000 prize.
No, honey. I think it's much less than that.
No, it's 25 grand.
Numerous hospitals across the country offer prizes for the first baby of the year, but none with such a high dollar amount. The screenwriter was likely thinking of the Baby of the Year contest, which indeed has a $25,000 prize, but which is decided by votes. I think I've heard stories about hospitals with contests for the first baby. Had you heard stories like that in real life?
I haven't heard those stories, but I have heard the urban legend about parents trying to deliver their babies at Disney World because that way they'll get a lifetime pass for the baby for Disney World. That's what I was thinking of the entire time. And I was also thinking, why does a hospital just have $25,000 lying around to give to the first baby born that year? Like, don't they have better uses of that money?
They do, which is why contests like that don't really exist in real life.
It's a very weird plot because it doesn't really feel like it goes anywhere. The parents in the plot, they end up getting distracted from what should be this beautiful moment by the promise of money. And yes, that's greedy, but on the other hand, you know, we live in a world where people need money to live, so it's kind of understandable. But then there are like these mildly wacky hijinks where they eat anchovies to try and get the baby to come sooner, but not too soon. And then it just kind of peters out because this is just like one of 8 plots in this movie. They kind of learn a lesson because Griffin and Tess say, yeah, our baby was born after yours, so you get the money. But it doesn't really feel like anything really happened.
I was never really rooting for Seth Meyers and Jessica Biel to get the money, especially not after we see their apartment, which must cost a fortune. An apartment of that size and that quality in New York City, I think would be ridiculously expensive. So I was surprised that an aspiring veterinarian could afford to live like that in New York.
His parents must be loaded. Or maybe Jessica Biel's job, whatever it is very well paying.
That little wedding chapel we see early in the movie is a real Presbyterian church in Palisades, New York.
Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married.
Sofia Vergara says,
Celebrities. They're just like us.
This is a variation on a recurring feature in Us Weekly magazine. Their version is called Stars. They're just like us and has paparazzi photos of celebrities doing ordinary things. And this is my opportunity to ask you, Peter, what did you think of how Sofia Vergara was used in this movie?
I feel like this movie basically just used her for the things that people know her for. Like, she says one-liners and she has cleavage. More cleavage than I think is allowed in a kitchen. Aren't you supposed to keep your clothes all the way buttoned up because otherwise it's a health issue?
I would think so, but they make exceptions for Sofia Vergara. I thought her character was written often in a kind of condescending way where they would give her malaprops like, are you psychotic? When she means psychic.
How did you know? Are you psychotic?
It's psychic.
They kind of do the same thing with Russell Peters, too. It's not great.
Mr. Cox at Ahern Records has a number of real albums and singles framed on the wall of his office. One of those is Freedom of Choice by Devo, the exact same album featured in Raising Helen. But you can also look for records by
Lip Sync, Soft Cell, Aha, Animotion, Cutting Crew, and Men Without Hats.
I think the joke is that these are mostly one-hit wonders from the 1980s.
I spent the whole time thinking, like, wait, so in the universe of this movie were all these songs Ahern Records releases? Did they release Funky Town instead of whatever record company did release Funky Town in the real world?
What I think the joke here is that Ahern Records peaked in the 1980s and hasn't been relevant for decades. That was my guess. Mr. Cox is also playing Angry Birds and says he needs 3 stars.
Come on, 3 stars. I need 3 stars!
Angry Birds was fairly new when this movie came out, only debuting in 2009. The player earns stars along the way for completing different levels or carrying out difficult tasks. 3 stars means that you not only finished a level, but did so with a difficult to obtain high score.
Oh, good for you!
When the spiritual Dr. Morissette is talking about natural childbirth, she specifically mentions no epidural, no Pitocin. Pitocin is a synthetic hormone used to induce labor. It is generally considered safe and has a 75% success rate, but some fear that it may cause fetal distress and therefore try to avoid it if possible. Was any of that amusing to you, the fact that they have a new age spiritual doctor?
Moderately amusing. I did like that she does seem to be a pretty good doctor other than that, and she turns down their offer to do a C-section in exchange for some of the prize money. So that's kind of nice. The first time I was watching this movie, I thought that she was going to be Josh Duhamel's mystery woman because of the line he says about, she asked me how my heart was, which is a weird thing to say to someone you've just met. Dr. New Age is going to be his love interest, and she wasn't. It was Sarah Jessica Parker.
Kim tells Haley this is not Girls Gone Wild.
This is not a training bra. And this is not Girls Gone Wild.
She's referring to a series of pornographic videos made between 1997 and 2013 that showed college-aged women exposing themselves for the camera. These videos were heavily marketed through late-night infomercials.
See the world's hottest all-real, all-naked girls going wild!
But the company that produced them eventually went bankrupt. The founder of Girls Gone Wild, Joe Francis, has been convicted of numerous crimes, both financial and sexual in nature, but is currently residing in Mexico.
There's a part in this movie where Kim and Haley are arguing over Haley wanting to go to Times Square for New Year's alone with the boy, and she's trying to say that she's mature enough to do it, and so she flashes her mother just to say, hey, this is not a training bra, and it's a very uncomfortable scene because the character is 15. I'm pretty sure Abigail Breslin was actually 15 at the time. Did not like that. Grossest part of the movie. They should not have done that.
That was the lowest point in the entire movie. I'm sorry that Abigail Breslin had to do that. I don't think a real human being would do that in a crowded train station.
In winter.
God, looking into the history of Girls Gone Wild is super dark.
Yeah, it says a lot about the Audis that was just an accepted part of the culture for so long.
Somehow it was, and it was very much advertised on TV. I remember that. A passerby says, have you ever been to Newark? The most populous city in New Jersey has a higher than average crime rate, but it is no longer rated as one of the 100 most dangerous cities in America. So way to go, Newark! Since Times Square is famously laden with advertisements, it is impossible to say which of the many on-screen ads in this movie constitute product placement and which just happened to be there when they were filming. But I think it's safe to say that both Nivea and Philips are examples of product placement. In his review, Roger Ebert specifically calls out the Nivea thing because all the Times Square revelers are wearing foam Nivea hats. Did you think those were deliberate product placement in the movie?
Those definitely were, yeah. Realistically, would all of those people be wearing foam Nivea hats? Probably not. Maybe like 2 or 3 at most.
I got a little bored while screening this movie a few times in preparation for this podcast. So a game that I would play is I would pause the screen at any moment when there was a lot of extras on camera, and I would try to determine which of the extras was secretly a serial killer hiding in plain sight. And years later, it would come out, oh, if you pause the movie New Year's Eve at 47 minutes and 11 seconds, you can see the Arkansas face eater in the corner.
They would never catch the Arkansas face eater in New York.
The tow truck driver says that Sam is dressed like Penn and Teller.
Everyone's closed today, which I'm guessing you know since you're dressed like Penn and Teller.
But these magicians, who have been performing as a duo since 1975, typically do not wear tuxedos in their act, instead opting for gray suits with neckties. Though we normally think of magicians wearing tuxedos, none of the major illusionists of today actually wears one. The driver later calls Sam James Bond. This is much more appropriate as the British super spy is frequently depicted in a tuxedo, both on book jackets and in films. It took this movie to make me realize magicians don't actually wear tuxedos anymore. None of them do.
The only one I can think of is Zatanna, and she's a fictional character. But yeah, tuxedos should make a comeback for magicians. It's been so long that it'd be charmingly retro now.
Paul tells Ingrid, we're going to need a bigger boat. Actor Roy Scheider improvised the line, you're going to need a bigger boat, during the filming of Jaws in 1975.
Nice.
Ava says that in her country, a man gets down on one knee when he proposes marriage or has been shot.
Sometimes it's been because of both.
Actress Sofia Vergara is originally from Colombia, and this was another joke I didn't love.
Yeah, very poor taste. Very, very poor taste.
Paul and Ingrid have breakfast at Tiffany's. Tiffany & Company has its flagship store at 727 Fifth Avenue in New York. The restaurant inside the store is called the Blue Box Cafe, and yes, it famously serves breakfast, as depicted in the Truman Capote novella and the Blake Edwards film.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that film.
Randy says that on New Year's Eve, people who don't drink or go nuts all year are suddenly going all Kanye on you. Atlanta-born rapper Kanye West was mostly known for upbeat pop songs in 2011. I guess things have changed a little since then.
Upbeat pop songs and the time he humiliated a teenage girl at the Grammys. And arguably that might have started him on his path to, yeah.
Randy says that he is not Spider-Man.
I am not Spider-Man.
Clearly.
But Ashton Kutcher's co-star, Topher Grace, from That 70s Show, was in Spider-Man 3.
So that's something.
I have heard that the ceiling hatch escape route for elevators does not actually work in real life.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. Doing that, you're just going to end up in the elevator shaft. That sounds like an easy way to get killed.
In the background of one scene, there is a huge bus ad that says Seinfeld, now on Pix 11. This is a CW affiliate in New York.
Seinfeld, coming March 21st at 11 on Pix 11.
It's very refreshing.
As far as I can tell, Seinfeld reruns are still airing on this channel, but not as many as in the past. And this has provoked some consternation among the Seinfeld fan community. Did you even notice that bus ad, or is that weird that I noticed it?
I did not notice it, but I do love the fact that Seinfeld fans are like offended that they are airing slightly fewer reruns than before.
The theory that anchovies induce labor was created specifically for this movie. It is not a known concept in the rest of the world. Actually, pregnant women are advised to avoid anchovies. Meanwhile, yams are not known to induce or prevent labor, but are recommended to women in the late stages of pregnancy. And do you think Jessica Biel actually had to eat raw anchovies for this movie?
I hope she didn't. That sounds gross.
I kind of hope she did, because I would have respect for that. The Bide-A-Wee Pet Adoption Center is real. Aww. And that giant globe we see is the Unisphere in Queens. Ryan Seacrest says this would never have happened to Dick Clark.
This would never have happened to Dick Clark.
TV host and producer Dick Clark started reporting from Times Square on New Year's Eve, 1972, but he didn't become the main host of the telecast until 1974.
7, 6. We want to thank Dixie Brand Mayonnaise. Whoa, Lordy, what a mayonnaise.
3, 2.
Ryan Seacrest took over for Dick Clark in 2005, so Ryan just had his 20th anniversary of doing this. Do you watch those telecasts, Peter?
I think I have a few years. I do not like Ryan Seacrest's personality. He's like a mannequin who made a wish to become a real boy. That's who Ryan Seacrest is to me. Who do you think is the more evil presence in this movie, Ryan Seacrest or Michael Bloomberg?
Probably Ryan Seacrest, because Ryan has caused me personal anguish, whereas Michael Bloomberg's reign of terror is just inflicted on the people of New York, where Ryan Seacrest gets to infect the entire nation. That miniature New York City that we see is a real exhibit at the Queens Museum. Its actual title is Panorama of the City of New York, and it was created for the 1964 World's Fair. I don't know to what extent they let you walk around in it, because it looks pretty delicate.
That seems like it could go badly.
Griffin says that Mary Poppins swore by castor oil. In the 1964 film adaptation of the beloved book, the Darling children specifically request that their new nanny not give them castor oil.
Never give us castor oil or glue.
It was supposedly a laxative, but it was often given to children as a punishment because of its unpleasant taste.
I love the fact that castor oil basically has no real health benefits. It's just, it'll make you go to the bathroom, or it is just to specifically hurt you.
I will admit that Seth Meyers' line, Mary Poppins sucks, actually did provoke a laugh from me after he drinks the castor oil.
Yeah, Seth Meyers is such a weird presence in this movie. Just the fact that he is in this movie feels surreal. You know those movie parodies that he'll do sometimes on his show? That's what his presence here reminds me of. It's very strange.
Tess says,
"Be here now."
This is a phrase popularized by the American spiritual teacher Ram Dass. It was the title of his best-selling 1971 book. Born Richard Alpert in Boston, Ram Dass helped popularize yoga in America and introduced a generation of Americans to Eastern philosophy. I didn't know Ram Dass was an American guy named Richard from Boston. He gave himself that name.
That sounds about right.
Mr. Buellerton recounts an infamous story from the 1986 World Series in which Red Sox first baseman Bill Buckner, who was injured at the time and struggling to make it through the playoffs at all, committed a crucial error in the 10th inning of Game 6 against the Mets.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner, here comes Knight and the Mets win it!
The Sox eventually forgave Buckner when they won the World Series in 2004. Buckner died in 2019. So I was glad that Bill Buckner got some closure on that. My comment here is that why can't it just be Ferris Bueller? Why do they have to say Buellerton? Let us have that.
Maybe it was like a rights issue thing. He's Matthew Broderick, by the way, for anybody listening at home who doesn't know all of the New Year's Eve lore. Also, what a weird career for Ferris Bueller if it really was him. I mean, I guess I can't really imagine what Ferris Bueller's adult job would be because he's just so iconically a teenager, but I guess it makes about as much sense as anything else.
Sam says that Socrates gave long speeches and that his friends killed him for it. The Athenian philosopher preferred shorter question and answer sessions.
What do you do for a living?
Lots of things.
Where's your office?
I don't have one.
How come?
I don't need one.
But he would occasionally deliver longer speeches when he deemed it necessary, and he was eventually convicted of impiety and corrupting the youth of Athens and sentenced to death.
They call it impiety and lack of propriety and quite a variety of unpleasant names.
but the jurors who convicted him were citizens of Athens, not necessarily his friends. His friends actually tried to break him out of jail, and he was like, no, I was convicted. I'm going to take the punishment.
Yeah, I think Sam might not know very much about Socrates.
And after the ball drops, Haley and Kim, and by the way, do you think Haley and Kim was an Eminem reference? Because Eminem certainly rapped a lot about his daughter Haley and his wife and ex-wife Kim.
Oh my God, maybe. What a weird thing if it was on purpose.
Kim does mention that she is divorced, and I wonder, is she divorced from Eminem? Haley and Kim meet up at the Stardust Diner, another New York City landmark. It's located at 1650 Broadway and is a multi-story 1950s themed diner. Then when we go inside, it's just a very boring, ordinary restaurant. I was disappointed by the interior, and they supposedly have a singing wait staff, but I didn't see that either.
You could have gotten some mileage out of the singing wait staff.
Did you want to go to the Stardust Diner? Does that sound like a place that you would want to go?
Not really, no.
I only wanted to see it because it's been in movies and stuff, but I guess the cool part is the outside and the logo.
Just go there, take a picture, do not eat the food.
So, Peter, were there any outstanding Garry Marshall fashions in New Year's Eve?
So in the maternity ward story, we are introduced to Till Schweiger as James wearing a fedora. That was a real piece of history right there. There was this very brief blip in the early 10s when people were trying to bring fedoras back. If you were a hipster, you probably had a fedora somewhere. It didn't last very long. By the time 2013 rolled around, it was like, yeah, we're not doing fedoras anymore, no. Which might have something to do with the fact that fedoras, for a lot of people, had become associated with the nice guy TM, the guys who are just really gross and passive-aggressive towards women.
That fedora was a real mistake, I thought, in the costume department because it caused me to be prejudiced against Till Schweiger's character. For me, the fedora and scarf combo depicted him as a douchebag, and I was like, oh, I don't want this guy to be triumphant because he's dressing like not just a douchebag, but he's dressed like a stereotypical douchebag, like a comedy sketch douchebag. And I was like, oh, don't dress him like that. The other fashion thing that I noticed was at one point, Katherine Heigl wears the ugliest boots I have ever seen. There's a point where she appears in the background when Sofia Vergara and John Bon Jovi are talking, and then Katherine Heigl comes in and she's overheard their conversation, and she's just wearing the most heinous boots I have ever seen. So those boots were a crime against feet.
They keep making jokes about Sarah Jessica Parker as Kim wearing clogs and those being embarrassing. Where's the smoke for those boots? I think the clogs thing was meant as an in-joke because she most famously played Carrie Bradshaw. Carrie Bradshaw loves shoes.
Well, toward the end of the movie, we get some definite shoe porn. I hope you notice that when she's getting out of that handsome cab.
We start looking at her shoes, then we pan up to her body in the dress, and it's Sarah Jessica Parker. She's the mystery woman.
And that looked very, very uncomfortable and very unsafe getting out of that handsome cab. I thought, oh, that does not look stable. Peter, did you have any other observations you wanted to make about New Year's Eve?
It was very fun getting to see Yardley Smith in person, and it was very fun getting to hear her talk. Obviously, when she is voicing Lisa Simpson, she is doing a voice. That's not exactly how she talks when she's just being herself. But there was a moment where she says, Dad. That really does sound like Lisa Simpson coming out of her mouth. That was fun.
Dad.
Even though I don't really like where the Ahern party story goes, I really did like that sequence where Josh Duhamel is in the RV and Yardley Smith and Jack McGee are asking him a lot of nosy personal questions. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. And so I'm glad that we got that. In fact, two things that I liked from that storyline were Josh Duhamel's interaction with Larry Miller, the tow truck driver, and then all the stuff with him on the RV with Yardley Smith. So even though that story leads to a pretty dumb conclusion, in my opinion, I like the middle part of it.
It's fun seeing fun actors interact with each other.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this movie any good?
I think I liked it better than Valentine's Day, which is a very, very low bar, but there you have it.
This movie is very much a smorgasbord or buffet of different scenes. And so it was difficult for me to have an overall opinion on the movie because there were sequences that I liked. I liked all the stuff, for instance, with Hector Elizondo as Kaminsky. I mentioned the RV scene and the tow truck driver scene and the entire storyline of Resolution Tour. Then there was stuff that I either didn't care about or didn't like at all, like Ashton Kutcher and Lea Michele being stuck on an elevator. That was not interesting to me. I hated Jensen and Laura's story because I thought both Jensen and Laura were shallow, self-involved monsters, and I didn't care whether they got back together or not. The maternity ward story was not of interest to me, and the story of Robert De Niro dying in the hospital, the best I can say is that because of his face and voice, Robert De Niro lends some gravitas to those scenes, but they don't seem to belong with the rest of the movie.
This is not a movie that needs gravitas. It is wildly out of place.
And so those scenes didn't seem to fit. Again, I would have cut maybe 4 or 5 of the 8 stories. So I can only give this a mixed review. I don't think it's totally worthless, but I really wish they had just taken Resolution Tour and stretched it out to be the whole movie. For me, it was about even with Valentine's Day.
The main thing that I can give it over Valentine's Day is that this does at least feel like it was written by a human being who has interacted with other human beings. Whereas, again, Valentine's Day, I'm pretty sure was written by aliens whose only exposure to human beings was other movies.
Maybe this one didn't feel quite as contrived or artificial as the last one, but I would still say it's a pretty modest accomplishment as a movie. Again, I'm going to put it in the context of Garry Marshall's career. We're certainly not in Exit to Eden or Other Sister or Georgia Rule territory here, even though, God, they bring back the abusive stepdad from Georgia Rule. I was shocked to see him back. Like, you're back for seconds? Really? And they brought back Sarah Paulson from The Other Sister, and they give her so little to do here that she's not even aware of what's happening in her own story.
I did kind of like the detail that she's the only normal person there. Tess and Griffin and James are all super locked in. They're treating this like a sports or something, and she's just like, hey, why is everyone being so weird about my pregnancy?
I don't think this movie was a total waste of my time. There were some scenes that I enjoyed, and I definitely liked all of the New York location footage. And I don't know if it's real or not, but I really love the Balinese spa. They say what borough it is. Like,
Brooklyn, I believe.
Brooklyn. Just that inside this building, there's this Balinese spa that seems to almost be on another planet. The other thing that I liked about this movie is that in New York City, there's older buildings that have a lot of character to them. Mm-hmm. And even the building where Ashton Kutcher and Lea Michele live seems to have a lot of character. Even though the elevator breaks, I still think it's a cool elevator with one of those old-time elevator doors.
I forgot to bring it up until now because there's so much in this movie, but Ashton Kutcher hating New Year's Eve is just such a weird thing. I guess when you're doing a movie about a holiday and you have a massive cast, you need to have somebody who's like, I hate insert holiday here. Even though I feel like taking a principled stand against New Year's Eve, it's not like hating Christmas or Valentine's Day where there might be reasons why you hate those holidays because they represent Christian hegemony or the thing where you place romantic love above everything else. It's just New Year's Eve.
Maybe he really resents having to buy a new wall calendar. That seemed really artificial to me, that he would be anti-New Year's Eve and he's tearing down all the New Year's Eve decorations.
He's changing the letters to say crappy New Year.
Oh, yeah. Take that, baby New Year. In the next one, is there going to be somebody who says, I hate Mother's Day? I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I wouldn't warn people away from this movie, but I don't think that they should go out of their way to see it.
Yeah, basically.
So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us at Libsyn.com, at TheseDaysAreOurs.Libsyn.com.
And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at TheseDaysAreOursPodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket next time we get together?
Well, we've had Valentine's Day. We've had New Year's Eve. Obviously, the next important holiday is Arbor Day. Just kidding. It's Mother's Day. We already said so.
And they're going to just skip over President's Day? I'm disappointed. So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile. Pitbull should make a comeback.